You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
It's classic. Classic, Max. Absolutely classic. Well, if mine's fine, we'll be covering the games, well, the last two games we've had. So obviously, Lucknow losing out to RCB. Poor old KL Rahul, who it's quite interesting to see the shift in the media, because we've been told for the last 3 years that he's not a ball eater and he hasn't got any problems, and KL Rahul can do whatever he wants because he's so good. But that in the last couple of days has shifted towards the Cricket Podcast way of thinking, which is quite enjoyable for us to be at the heart of the zeitgeist, Max. And then we also will be covering the mighty Rajasthan Royals, obviously wearing the training kit, which has finally arrived, who beat RCB yesterday to secure that place in the final, where they will play the Almeida Bad Boys, the team that have gone against all odds, and ended up in the final because they just know how to win the clutch moments. We are waiting for Max to sort his sound out, so I'm going to do the messages right now. We are sponsored by Serious Cricket. Go to the website, use code TCP22 for 10% off all cricket equipment. Get yourself a new bat, new gloves, new helmet, whatever it might be. And then we want you to go over to Patreon, go Patreon/the Cricket Podcast. The Discord has made the IPL incredible. It's been absolutely phenomenal for people to kind of be involved and covering the game, and actually a really fun cricket community. Max is rarely on there because he's too busy on his other Discord channels playing Age of Empires or something like that. I don't know. Too cool for us. And then we're also on Twitter and Instagram at the Cricket Pod. And then if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. Max, you're back.
Thank you for stepping in there, Ross. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but I should be back now. Apologies. Technical difficulties are still not the kinds of things that we can do without on this podcast. We're still a two-bit amateur organisation, so I can only apologise wholeheartedly for that. So thank you for stepping up gamely, Ross, in that period while I frantically clicked to make things work.
Story of my life, Max. Story of my life.
You are so such a valuable person to have, and I don't know what we would do without you and your quick thinking. You should save that example for any future interviews that you might have for future jobs. Right, so let's get on with the cricket, shall we? Would you like to start with the game that happened yesterday, or would you like to go back in time? And let's
go back in time.
Tuesday?
Let's go back in time. We're not right after a game, are we? Let's go back in time where LSG were playing RCB, and it was one of those games, Max, where they were playing at Eden Gardens, I think it was, and. This was the eliminator, wasn't it? This was one where whoever lost here was being sent home. It wasn't like the previous game where the winner went through to the final. And LSG decided to bowl first. They thought, do you know what, we're going to be better chasing, and actually that's probably suits them, I think, Max. I think looking at their side, we've talked about it before. If Quinton de Kock and KL Rahul get going, then actually there's no score that they couldn't theoretically chase down. And RCB probably would have preferred to set the tone, but they didn't really set the tone, Max, because Faf du Plessis was out for a duck.
Yes.
Much to the chagrin of my fantasy team, which has gone. I was leading the way, and Swami has kicked my arse now, which is painful. I might even finish third. I might finish third in a 2-horse race. But everyone was saying, Max, that Virat Kohli was back, and he was back to his ball munching with 25 of 24 balls. Max, out of that bit, it's been a really we're obviously going to come on to the next game where they did lose to Rajasthan Royals, but again here you've got two people who are striking at less than 110, I think, across the tournament in Virat Kohli and Faf du Plessis. It's not what you want, especially when you've got someone like, I'll raise Paul Sterling as I'm a big buyer of Paul Sterling. But the intent has not been there, Max, is it really?
You're suggesting that Paul Sterling over Faf du Plessis is the future of T20? I mean, he's a very good cricketer and probably suffers from being Irish, I would say. But that's a conversation for another day. Of course, I'm not the Irish specifically. Nothing wrong with the Irish. Talking about, the smaller nations.
You be careful what you're about to say.
But no, you're right. It's not really ideal, is it? Having it's a game of catch up. That's what it is, isn't it? If your openers aren't getting you a head start in the game, it falls on the rest of your lineup to catch up. Now, what RCB do have in the bank is Glenn Maxwell, Dinesh Karthik, and even Lonmore. In fairness, their strike rates at the IPL this year have all been over 160. Dinesh Karthik's over 180, and I think he leads the way. And probably, his second place was Liam Livingstone, so he's won the whatever the super striker rubbish nonsense is. And Glenn Maxwell's been up there as well, without having had a single innings where he's completely destroyed the opposition. He's had quite a few very fast 30s and 40s. And they've needed that to get to the position that they find themselves in. So it's probably not the ideal way to structure a batting lineup, but it's worked. It's worked for them well enough. Faf, we know, is kind of a slow starter and then kicks on towards the end. That is the way he's always played. And again, we don't necessarily agree with that, but he's unlikely to change his ways at this stage of his career. Virat Kohli, we've done enough about Kohli this year. Let's leave the poor bloke alone. But, I mean, we're dancing around the elephant in the room, aren't we?
Yeah, the big floppy-eared elephant, Rajat Patidar, who he struck at 207 and hit a blistering century. Like, it was phenomenal. He looked like the best player who's ever played cricket, let alone the best player on the pitch. And you've got an uncapped player here. I think, was it his 6th or 7th game in the IPL or something like that?
Yeah, well, he's come in to replace Anuj Rawat, hasn't he, who started the season opening the batting. And again, the less said about that, the better. Didn't really work out for them. And what a way to announce yourself in the RCB lineup.
Because he was playing for them last year, wasn't he? He has played a couple of games. He's now played 11 IPL games, and this innings was special. Like, for RCB fans, this was something that they would almost expect to see from one of their big name players, right? That over the last kind of couple of seasons, their whole with the whole entire franchise, their typical approach is have some big name superstars and then have some less good domestic talent because they've not had enough money in the auction to actually build out, grab the star players from the domestic pool, other than obviously the likes of Virat Kohli. But here, he put all of them to shame. He was incredible. And they rocketed him up to 207 as a total. That, with runs on the board in what is a semi-final, that's big dick energy.
Yeah, it's if someone said to you before a knockout game of cricket, you will bat first, and you could have 207 runs. You are taking that, and you are running away as fast as you possibly can. That's what would you reckon? Like, all things considered, two even sides. I'm thinking like 80% win at least in the battle. Like, if you think about the pressure, the mental side of things, it is a huge position to be in, and it was a good pitch. I mean, and it was back at Eden Gardens where there have been some smaller boundaries in those knockout games, perhaps by design. Who knows? Who's to say?
Perhaps.
I'm not going to offer any cynical conjecture there, but I mean, it's a great platform to have, especially when you consider what happened at the top of the order. But between them, they scored 25 off 25 balls. Just to put that 207 into a bit more context, and it was a stunning effort from Patidar. But we should probably have a little chat about some of the fielding.
There was there 3 drops, I think, 4 drops.
Yeah, I mean, some were harder than others.
But like with every catch, Max, like with every catch, so that's fair. But in a crunch game, you've got to be doing the basics right. And actually, LSG did not do the basics right here. And actually, they moved around their team as well, which I think was a bit of a challenge, right? They hadn't really been. They dropped Jason Holder, and Jason Holder is not kind of an elite T20 player, but he's a good T20 player. He's had a couple of tough games, but who hasn't in this IPL, right? You've seen so many people either get ducks or go around the park, etc. But actually, what you've seen over the course of the 14 games is people come back, prove what they're about. I mean, look at Daniel Sams, for example. Daniel Sams had one game, was thrown to the Wolves, and then came back, and actually Mumbai were better with him in the side. And here, I thought it was a bit of a mistake to get to your crunch game. You've got a blueprint for winning, and you drop one of your most senior players, kind of ex-West Indian captain. He's been there and had the disappointment with the Sunrisers, so knows all about playing with disappointment. And he's someone in your team I think I would want on the pitch. And I think if we had Dan Weston on the show, he'd be talking around, well, you've got to be picking on kind of outputs. You've got to be picking on kind of the data performances that have kind of been pushed out. But I'm very much a heart and gut guy, Max, I think, when it comes to this kind of stuff. And in these big games, it comes down to who sometimes has the biggest heart. And I think Jason Holder should have been on the pitch. And so,
well, he's also a guy who's really worked on becoming a really effective death bowler, hasn't he, at the end of innings, slower balls and that kind of thing. And that's possibly something that would have been. I mean, it's been lacking in a lot of teams this year. We've seen that, and he would be a useful man to have around. But it's easy to say after the fact, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
do reckon he would.
Talk about like picking people on output and not heart. If that were the case, we'd never have seen Mohsin Khan. And once again, he's turned up. He's taken 1 for 25 in innings where everyone else has gone for pretty much 10 and over. Krunal Pandya went for 1 run under 10 and over. I am still so confused about what's happened here. Like he barely, he barely even played in the SMAT. He was behind other people in the pecking order, really. So there wasn't a huge body of evidence stats wise to suggest that he was going to come on and do this. I think we spoke about this with Dan the other day, and again, he's still coming out and producing unbelievable results, and even more when you consider the context of Rajat Patidar having the game of his life and dispatching everyone. Like, what was it, 27? He took Ravi Bishnoi for in 1 over at one point, and just everyone was on the receiving end of some total battering, except Mohsin Khan. I mean, what a guy he's turned out to be for LSG. That is
he's LSG's Ryan Sidebottom, isn't he? That's what he is. LSG's Ryan Sidebottom. So, oh yeah, very impressive.
Similar hair, similar build.
Exactly, similar complexion, similar use of sun cream.
Hopefully, a different nickname.
Yeah, Kabira went round the park. Max, he's been an interesting. The Sri Lankans, I think, have had a pretty good IPL actually. On the back of it, I think if you were going into it and going, right, actually, who's going to surprise you? Actually, the likes of Rajapaksa, Kabira,
Hasaranga,
that's what I was looking for. They've performed very well in this game. Not to be for him. Yeah. Let's talk about the Super Giants batting. Obviously, Quinton de Kock smashed that blistering 140, third highest score in the IPL. We typically talk around how this team is kind of shapes up to if the top order don't hit runs, then the rest of the order kind of struggle. Here, it wasn't really the case, but it was unfortunate that we saw KL Rahul do a KL Rahul, and it didn't almost need to be that innings. The guy has hit he's ended up 79 or 58 balls. That wasn't what was happening, right? It was pretty much going at a runner ball for quite a lot of the time, and it just ended up putting pressure on everything else that's going on in that space. They had Evan Lewis in the side, and Evan Lewis is an opening batsman. He has done relatively well as an opening batsman. If you're going to have a third opener in your side, the logic would be you'd play him at you'd lose an early wicket and play him at 3, right, Max?
Yeah. Obviously, that's the obvious logic. Especially, I mean, he's a lefty, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a lefty. Yeah,
and Quinton de Kock fell. So again, you're keeping. You can't use an excuse of left-right combination there. I mean, you stick him in. So that was bizarre for me. But yeah, I mean, there was an elephant in the room with the RCB innings. There's a slightly less attractive elephant in the Lucknow room after this game. I mean, if you look at it on the face of it, what we've been doing a bit recently is like take the innings out of the game and look at what the rest of the squad have to get to catch up, right? So 79 or 58 means the rest of the team had to get 129 off 62, which isn't horrendous, but it is like 13 and over for 10 overs, so it's tricky. And obviously, it's a big chase, so he took a chunk out of it, but like you said, a lot of that is kind of covered by a bit like Josh Butler the other a few weeks ago, where he was going horrendously and then hit 4 sixes in a row, and suddenly it looked like an okay innings. We got a similar thing here, but I saw something really interesting about KL Rahul and his stats this IPL between batting first and chasing.
Okay,
and his average chasing and his strike rate chasing are so much worse. It's really interesting, especially it's been a competition where generally chasing has been easier for the batters. We've seen people win the toss and choose to bowl, not exclusively, but very close to exclusively. And he's Is it a mental thing? Is he crumbling under the pressure? Is it a kind of thing where he feels like I have to do the work, not because he hasn't got the players, because he's definitely more got the players this year than he did with Punjab in the past. Whether it's more just a case of he wants to be the man to do it all. I don't know. What do you think?
There's one person to blame. We've been told this is the person to blame for. It is Anil Kumble. It is Anil Kumble has been the person to blame for the last 3 years. We keep it, and we've seen the talent. Right? We've seen KL Rahul do it, and Lord knows that we've called him the ball eater. The ball eater is stuck. That is across Twitter now. It's fantastic to see. But
even Sanjay Manjrekar and Daniel Vittori are saying it now. Cricket Info.
We're there. We are there. We're in the big time. But this is what I don't know what it is, Max. Like, you can't go into KL Rahul's head. He's come out before and said strike rate is overrated. Like the guy, maybe he's beyond helping. Like he's in the top 5 run scorers again this year. Like he's going back relatively happy. He's a bit upset he's not got the orange cap. Quinton de Kock has done well, but again, this was not the time to do a classic KL Rahul. This was the one to go, do you know what? I'm going to win this for my team here. And it's really, really frustrating for LSG fans. And I know there's not going to be loads and loads of LSG fans in the first season of the team, but they're again. They've had some players who have done really well this year. I thought Deepak Hood has been absolutely fantastic. And he's played in a number of different roles. He's batted at 5, batted at 4 and batted at 3. I felt a little bit sorry for Manan Vora coming into the side, and actually 19 off 11 actually is not a bad innings really. But Evan Lewis should have taken that 3rd spot when Quinton de Kock got out. And it just to me, in the big game, they did a Pep Guardiola. They made some interesting calls where they didn't have to make interesting calls. They should have kept it simple, done the basics right, and actually things could have gone better, right?
They played Fernandinho at centre-back and they didn't have Gundogan to come off the bench and save them.
And it's just really frustrating. Again, RCB, the makeup of their team kind of gets them out of trouble sometimes. The fact that Harshal Patel is Harshal Patel, again, got them out of that trouble. But LSG will be looking back at probably an opportunity missed, I think. even with Stoinis not having the best of seasons, again, you still expect more. But if I'm an LSG management team, I'm sitting there going, do you know what? I'll take 4th place this year. First time into the competition, I'm taking 4th place.
Yeah, and they lost Mark Wood. We can't forget that. That was a big blow to them at the start of the tournament, wasn't it? And Kamira came in and did a reasonable job. They've unearthed a potential gem in Mohsin Khan. Whether he can go ahead and do it next year, we'll see when people have known a bit more about him. But the fact that he's managed to do it consistently for over half the season this year is a very positive sign. And yeah, if they can just sort out King Legend's brain and just get him to do all the stuff, because it's like we know he could do it. You've seen him. He did it in flashes in the game. It was like he decided, was like, I'm going to hit a 6 now, and he did. It's just
the guy is clearly amazing at cricket. He's clearly amazing. He is clearly amazing. I feel sorry for India.
Just want to wring his neck and just be like, just be good. Just do what you like. Play it proper. I don't know. Yeah, I'm really. I feel
sorry for India
now.
That's what I feel. I feel sorry for India because he's going to end up as their captain across all 3 formats at some point. So we'll see what happens. Max, let's move on because it's Saturday morning and no doubt you've got cricket to go to. Mm-hmm. So yesterday's game, obviously RCB beat LSG. Yesterday they got the chance to go to the final where they were playing my boys, the Rajasthan Royals. Max, we're going into this. Where was your heart? Were you back in the Rajasthan Royals? Or were you back in RCB?
I honestly was marginally pro RCB after that performance against LSG. I thought it was really impressive. I like the team. I like what they've got. They've got a bit of everything. They're balanced. They've got power hitting at the end, but it is just again comes down to needing that sort of opening partnership to flourish a bit more and give them something to work with. And again, that didn't happen. And this time they weren't able to be bailed out. And Rajasthan Royals, again, I was sort of looking at it and thinking, they're fairly well evenly matched, but I thought what it might come down to is death bowling versus death hitting. And you look at it and you're like, RCB, Harsha Patel against the Rajasthan Royals, who bat not very deep.
Yeah.
Rajasthan Royals, they've got Bolt, Krishna, Obed McCoy has really grown into things, actually. He started off pretty well. Expensive. We obviously will remember the game against Delhi Capitals where there was the no ball controversy. But he's worked something out. He's clearly found a way and sort of found his groove and got better and better over the last few games, and that's been really important for them. Mm-hmm. But even then, I was looking at it thinking, you look at what RCB have got at the death in the likes of DK and even like Shabazz and that sort of player against what Rajasthan Royals have got with the ball. And I thought that perhaps RCB would just have a bit too much. And I was still thinking that halfway through the RCB innings when Patidar had less explosively got them to a position where they could really kick on, and especially while Glenn Maxwell was there and when he looked like he might get going. And I thought it was going to be a case of this will be a decent score and it will come down to Joss Butler.
Yeah.
I was half right.
Yeah. Well, on this front, Max, I think you're right. Again, it comes down to you've got your big game players, and if Virat Kohli and Faf du Plessis aren't your big game players, and they've got a serious problem, right? You've spent what? That's over 20 crore on both of those combined. Yeah, so 21 crore, I think, between those two.
Yeah.
Virat Kohli at 14 and Faf at 7. And again, here, they've bottled it. That's what's happened. They've bottled it. Virat Kohli hits an unbelievable flick 6 off of Bolt. You're just like, how the hell has he played? He's got out the line of the ball, whipped his wrists.
He's on one leg as well.
Yeah, he's gone 30 rows back, and you're just like, what have I just witnessed? It is incredible. And you're sitting there going, how has he possibly done that? Next delivery, he's little to Krishna, or a couple of deliveries later. Literally he's got out exactly the same as he did.
World's worst shot.
Yeah, but he played that shot in the first game when they played against each other. He played exactly that shot, got the same. I think he got caught a point when he played it. So he caught it better in the first game than he did there. And he's nicked off to Sanju Samson, who had a fucking terrible game behind the stumps, by the way. Could not catch a cold.
Everything was bouncing out, wasn't it?
Honestly, like old lead hands.
Reminded me of me.
But it was a massive choke. Like, it was a huge choke from their big players. Patadar, again, as you said, did well, but was caught very nicely on the boundary, which I quite enjoyed.
I was so confused by that. I mean, maybe
didn't know why he threw it up. Yeah, didn't know why he threw it up. But and then the rest couldn't contribute. Right, Glenn Maxwell again didn't use his brain. This is what frustrates me about the Big Show. He's clearly got all the talent, but he's had so many innings this year where he gets about to 20 and just goes, "Oh, my job's done now." Here, he didn't need to. He played it right into the trap. He played into the trap.
It was a really, really shit ball. Should have just gone for 6, and he didn't do it.
Yeah, but there's
it happens.
It does. And then the rest. Yeah, the middle order didn't fire this time.
Apart, didn't it? It really fell apart. And that was. I mean, at a halfway stage, I thought it was done. I didn't think it would be quite as done as it was, but it was. Yeah, I thought it was that was a swung. 80% Rajasthan at that point, possibly 90. But yeah, I mean, what was interesting about Kohli in that dismissal was that it was clear that he knew he needed to not play that shot because he was leaving everything outside off stump. It was like a test match start to his innings. If it was on the legs, he was going for it. Outside off stump, wide outside off stump, he was getting the leave out, and he just forgot to leave that one, and just
too tempting. I thought Prashant Krishna bowled really well yesterday. Max, before we continue, we've had a couple of super chats.
Yes,
Swadin, thank you very much. Rajasthan Royals fan army forever. Yes, my brethren. And Vic has asked, Faf did a good job, but does RCB have an intrinsic problem getting past the mark? Who is to blame? Whose effigy are we burning? Max, it's always a tough one for RCB. There's so many different people. But let's finish the game, and then we can decide which effigy we're going to burn. It was unfortunate for the team. Like Kartik, Shabazz Ahmed. I mean, Hasaranga. We've been told Hasaranga can bat. Well, I've not seen any evidence of that this year.
No, he's not had a great season with the bat, but I think on this one, probably more credit due to Prashant Krishna than...
What you mean the searing in swinging Yorker?
Yeah.
He should have played it.
That was one of the balls of the tournament. I mean, It was... When you take 2 stumps out the ground, you know you've done something right. It was absolutely stunning. And I was going to say, you said you thought Prashant Krishna bowled really well, and I was going to mention that his death bowling was much better today, although I don't think his slower ball is the world's best disguised slower ball. It's better disguised than Sam Curran's slower ball. I can tell you that from watching Surrey last night. Sam Curran's slower ball was really funny. The first time I saw it, I actually just started laughing at how obvious it was. But that's a bit of a tangent. Yeah, I mean, the power play bowling from, again, we can say Faf and Virat Kohli didn't really do the job, but the power play bowling from Rajasthan Royals in this game was really good. Trent Boult was swinging it around corners for 3 overs. And Prashant Krishna was getting some serious... Yeah, it was.
It was seam movement.
Well, Prashant Krishna was getting it off the pitch, seam movement. There was the one that cut Patidar in half and went for 4 byes, which was just like... It was too good for literally everyone. It was... Boult was swinging and seaming it. It was pretty hostile stuff. They did well to actually negotiate it and get, 46 for 1 off the power play. And that was where I was quite bullish about RCB's chances, because they'd sort of negotiated a really tough spell, and then they just never kicked on, did they? That was the problem.
And what I was interested in, so the last couple of games, Rajasthan Royals had used Ravichandran Ashwin in the power play. And actually, both times, I think it went for 15 and 17. And here, they were just like, do you know what? Let's revert back. Let's keep it simple. Again, we talked about in the last game, LSG doing the basics right. Here, Rajasthan with the ball did the basics right. They trusted their players who were just like, who's going to be good with a new ball? Actually, it's going to be Krishna and it's going to be Boult. And then actually, they rotated really quite nicely. Ashwin, I thought, bowled particularly quite well, especially to Patidar, who had taken... as you say, Bishnoi, etc., to the cleaners in the last game. Chahal had a pretty terrible game. He's gone for plenty of sixes this year.
He's had an interesting year. If you split his season in half, 18 wickets in the first 8 games at an economy rate of just over 7. I think it was 7.1. Last 8 games, he didn't get one. So yeah, it was 8 wickets, and the economy's close to 9.
Yeah, it's tough being a spinner, right? It's tough being a spinner. Obed McCoy, we've mentioned, did well. Him and Krishna both finished with 3 wickets apiece, and there just wasn't enough runs on the board. Like for Rajasthan Royals here, they would have been like, this game's done. Like, they're not even challenged at 157. Sunrisers would have chased this down in the semi-final. That's
their MO. That's what they were there for.
But here we talk about how good RCB's bowling lineup is, and actually how well-rounded the team is. Their batting let them down, but here it was just a really effective start. Jaiswal is coming back into the side after being dropped, Max, and actually it looked really good. Like, the confidence is there, I think.
Yeah, I was surprised they dropped him in the first place. He had a few dodgy games, but he's a useful man to have, because you can usually rely on him, even if he's not gonna do anything particularly good. He's not gonna at least stick around and waste you a load of balls. You can fairly reliably expect him to either do this kind of thing he did today, 21 off 13, not today, yesterday, or fail fairly quickly and not waste too much time. But he's bounced back from that really well. I've been impressed with him, and then there's a man who did some things again.
Well, it's people doubted the English contingent. In some cases, rightly so. What you can't doubt is how good Jos Buttler is at cricket. Like, the guy is,
and this was back to vintage Butler as well, wasn't it? We're not looking at the kind of the hundreds where he'd been quite slow to start and got 30 off 30 and then kicked on. It was from the word go. He was at the races.
Well, and it was exactly the right approach, right? For Rajasthan to win this and not have the nerves set in, right? They needed to have a strong power play. When Jaiswal got out, they were 61. They were 61 already on the board after 5 overs. That is you've come out. You've won the game already. You've broken the back of the chase. Yeah. And then Butler was just like, I'm going to just fuck you up. That's pretty much that was him. Like, he just decided. He just didn't stop. 10 fours, 6 sixes. He ends up with 106 over 60 balls, and some of the things that he was doing were, I said last time, it looked like Patidar was the best cricketer ever to play the game. Jos Buttler looked incredible. Like, it was just against a really good bowling lineup. He made them look ordinary, and it's that ability for him to switch gears, which is just it's devastating. It must be horrible to bowl to.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few people in world cricket. Again, I think we spoke about this recently. Jos Buttler is one of very few people in world cricket who can just flip that switch. KL Rahul's another one, annoyingly, but he's just like, I don't know why anyone would doubt him. The evidence is all there, and it's been. I mean, obviously, this also, like, this year, in fairness, it's not like. This hasn't been your average year for Jos Buttler in the IPL. He's hit 400s now, which is the joint most ever. I mean, it's been a supreme year, which is evidenced by the fact that he's within touching distance. I mean, it's a very long reach that he won't make, but it is plausible that he could score enough runs to overtake Virat Kohli in the, was it 970, the most runs ever in a season.
Yeah, incredible.
He'd need like 150 in the final. It's not going to happen, but it's within the realms of possibility, and the fact that that's even a thing is quite impressive. Yeah. But it's just been a vintage year for Jos Buttler in the IPL, and I'm going to go back and say what I've said before. I think it's a kind of partly a mental thing now that he's sort of kind of freed of England vice captaincy and the Test side, and just can sort of concentrate on what he's best at.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't play Test cricket ever again. Like the guy is.
Yeah, I want this Jos Buttler.
I want to see. I want to pay to watch this every week. The guy's hit 824 runs at an average of 58 or 59 if you're rounding up, a strike rate of over 150. That is incredible. He's hit 45 sixes. Like, the guy is a freak. He's an absolute freak.
Insane.
And it's just, Vic has asked in the chat, is Josh the best T20 player of the world? It's very, very difficult for someone to argue against him being the best batter in T20 cricket because he's in the toughest competition, and he's done this. Like, he literally has done this. It is madness. Fair play to Josh Butler, and I'm just so glad he plays for England and Rajasthan. Max is a human being has asked in the chat is why is Sanju not in the squad or the India squad? It's a tough one. So I thought Sanju Samson again didn't have the best game, if I'm perfectly honest, and yet his team have got him out of trouble. Was terrible with the gloves, was pretty ordinary with the bat, but it didn't matter because he was just pretty much getting Josh Butler on strike. So
he's had a really good year.
He's had a really good year.
In general, I think he's very unlucky. He's unfortunate to miss out on that squad. But I suppose was their choice Sanju or DK, and they went with DK. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, he's the problem he's got is that there are lots of wicket keepers that he has to try and displace, and I suppose they don't want to completely fill the side with. I mean, you could feasibly have an Indian T20 batting lineup that is all wicket keepers.
And they'd probably do okay.
They'd probably be pretty good.
I think, Max, we've talked before about the strengths of RCB. Here, we've got to talk about some of their bowlers. Josh Hazlewood was a fantastic pickup for them at the auction. Like, genuinely a really, really good pickup. Again, he comes away here with 2 for 23, the standout bowler in the side. But again, Faf had to go elsewhere because Mohammad Siraj was taken apart. Siraj has now got he's been hit for the most sixes in IPL in a single IPL season. So I think he's 31. Hasaranga has been hit for 30, and he's got the highest ever. I took a little note of it. I think he's got the highest ever economy in a season, which is 10.23. He's gone at this year. Which is the worst of all time. Oh, in the power play that is, still absolute shit. So that's what it is, right? And again, he had Sparks this season is Siraj who we retained. That you had that fierceness, but again, the dent to his confidence that Siddharth Kaul was called up ahead of him in one of those games must have been brutal. Yeah. Max, overall, it was a game where Rajasthan just, I think, comprehensively outplayed them. I think it was one of those bits. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was thinking about the death bowling and the hitting at the end, wasn't I? When I was deciding who I thought was going to win, and I suppose what it really came down to was power play bowling and power play runs, and the exact opposite happened. You had a side whose power play bowling was far better than the other, and power play batting was far better than the other, and that's basically what happened in this game. And well done to Rajasthan Royals for bouncing back from that defeat. It proves again what we were saying about what a big advantage it is to finish in the top two, because again the
2 bites of the cherry, baby.
Yeah, the finalists are placed 1 and 2 were placed 1 and 2 in the group stage. So I'm really looking forward to Sunday. I think it's going to be a real ding dong.
A real ding-dong.
A real ding-dong.
Nicely put. We've got over 100 people watching us right now, Max. So thank you
amazing.
all for watching us. If you could like and subscribe to our channel, that would be marvellous. And Max, let's preview tomorrow. Yeah, so we're commentating on Guerrilla Cricket all day tomorrow, aren't we? We've got we'll be watching it and obviously commentating. Yeah.
Will you be joining me in the studio in Sydenham, or are you going to be remote?
I'll be working remotely. I'm very much I'm a nomad. I'm a digital nomad. But it's going to be tomorrow, as you say. It's the 2 best teams in the tournament, right? First and second. Like, you've ended up in that position. They've gone through the playoffs, and it's really interesting. Like, Gujarat Titans have won pretty much every single clutch moment, and that's what fair play. Like, David Miller has done nothing for 6 years, and then for some reason comes back and is unbelievably good. Twatia is the best finisher in world cricket. There's no way. And they bought 9 crore. We're like, you're doing what? 9 crore for Twatia?
Yeah.
Doesn't bowl really either, and he's just there to win them games. Max, where do you think where do you think it's going to go? Are you in the Armada Bad Boys camp, or are you in the Rajasthan Royals camp?
And my head says Rajasthan Royals, but my heart says, or my gut rather than my heart, because I don't really. I think it'd be nice for both sides to win, but my gut just they've built this kind of aura, the Gujarat Titans, of winners. They've in one short season they've just put up this display that suggests that when it comes to it, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do the business. So I reckon they're gonna do it. I reckon they're gonna go all the way in their home stadium.
Yeah, the Modi spaceship.
Yeah, that they've never played in, but is their home ground.
Yeah, I remember when England played there for the first time, and we were taking the mick out of it being named after Modi. It still is funny, and it still is ridiculous that it's named after him. So that's what it is. Max, I reckon it's going to be the Rajasthan Royals.
Of course you do. You can't say anything else, can you? I mean, that's.
There's just that bit. We're so close to glory now. Like fate. I don't know who I want to support this year. I don't know what it was going to be. Obviously, I've been a Rajasthan Royals fan before, and I was like, I went into the hat for the fans. Yeah, the redraw for the fans. It was for the entertainment value, and Jack pulled out Rajasthan Royals for me again.
It's meant to be. It's meant to be.
It's meant to be. And they've been great to watch. There is just a bit like tomorrow should be, as you say, an absolute ding dong. Like, we've got a team where I think. It's going to come down to obviously the batting. I think if Josh Butler does a Josh Butler, then it's going to probably be game over. But there's a lot riding on the likes of Shubman Gill, Riddiman Saha, Hardik Pandya to kind of lead the way. If they can't tame Rajasthan Royals, I think Rajasthan Royals will hit too many runs for them. Is my feeling, but. Every time I look on paper, I say that all the time.
Yeah,
and they manage to come out. They chase it down.
This is what I mean about the aura that they've built. Like on paper, you look at the Titans lineup, and you're like, Riddiman Saha, decent player, but I'm not he's not Josh Butler, and he's like, yeah, David Miller's had an unbelievable season. We probably need to change our opinion of him because he's
we'll kill him. Fair play.
He's been one of the best players in the IPL this year, so he's been a real asset to have. But yeah, Hardik Pandya as the anchor, it's not what we're used to, but it's working for whatever reason.
The fact that he can bowl is a huge boon. If he couldn't bowl, then it's not going so well. But they're in the final. I'm looking forward to it. And to be commentating on it is going to be an absolute pleasure. So I'm hoping we have our Ian Smith moment.
By the barest of all margins. Let's hope it goes well. My first hurdle to get over is setting it up. So hopefully it goes better than today.
Hopefully. We've had a last-minute super chat from Jitta. Thank you very much, mate. He says, I think it's really happening this year. What does Joss do to counter Rashid in the final on a skinny pitch? I think GT's home court advantage is real, and 120,000 people are going to be ridiculously loud. Yeah, the fact that there's... if you've not seen the Modi spaceship, you have to go and look at some pictures of it now. It is... monstrous. It is huge. There's going to be over 100,000 people watching it in the stadium.
Yeah. It was loud yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, a cacophony, I think is probably a way to put it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To answer the question, you've seen Joss actually play out people this year. You've seen kind of how tempered and how calculated he is, and I think what they'll end up doing is doing what the teams used to do against Rashid Khan, Sunrisers.
Khan,
He'll go at 5 or 6 and over. They won't take many risks against him. He'll go away and be like, do you know what? I've only gone for say 20 runs here, and they'll have to target the others. And let's be fair, depending on which Shami turns up, sometimes Shami turns up and he's unbelievable, hoops around corners. Other times he's a sitting duck in the power play. And it's all about the individual matchups.
Well, if the conditions are anything like it was for the Royals yesterday, then Mohamed Shami could be a bit of a handful in that power play. So we'll. I think the toss will be fairly important as well. And on Rashid, my thoughts are very similar to you. I think play him out is the way to go. But there's, I reckon there's a slight point of interest maybe to look out for is whether Hardik decides to give him one in the power play. If things don't go so well for the Seamers in the power play, you might see him bring Rashid Khan on for the 6th over. And that is a time to perhaps attack him. Go for the shots where you have less protection on the boundary, and then that gives you even more of a license to just play him out for the next 3. So if I'm Hardik Pandya, I'm doing as much as possible to avoid bowling Rashid Khan in the power play and just give him 4 overs in the middle. Try and grind things out, and if you can nick a wicket of someone like Joss Butler or even Samson, then that's going to be massive for them.
Yeah, huge. And they do have Sai Kishore, right, who I think has actually done relatively okay. But again, can they use that? And they do have that flexibility. It's incredible that Matthew Wade is likely to play his second T20 final. Obviously, he was in the World Cup, won that. Now he's in the IPL final. It's madness. But we're big fans of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and we've had them on a couple of times and done a couple of their shows. And they always talk that West Indians win UT20 games. Gujarat Titans don't have a West Indian. They don't have it in their lineup. Alzari Joseph. So it's Alzari Joseph versus Obed McCoy. That's the 2 bits. And
Shimron Hetmeyer. It's 2-1.
Oh, Hetty. Yeah, Hetty. I always forget about Hetty, which is horrible, really, purely in the fact that he's.
How can you forget
hero.
that hair?
He's an unsung hero. Like, he's one of those people that he's good. Jack doesn't like him, which is hilarious, and he's been proved completely wrong.
That makes it even better when he does well.
But Hetmeyer, but it's because Hetmeyer's gone. He's gone under the radar now. Like, he had an incredible season, then went and had a child, has come back relatively subdued. Maybe tomorrow is the Hetmeyer show. That's what we're going to see. Well, we'll look forward to covering it. Everyone, thank you ever so much for tuning in. There's been over a couple hundred people watching this today, which has been wonderful. So if you're still watching, please subscribe. Vic London says Hetty is the best. Can't deny that. And let's see what happens. Max, see you tomorrow on Gorilla Cricket.